many families are put into by having to pay for medicines for loved ones and people they care that are not getting genuine articles. So, why use blockchain? Immutability and incorruptibility is something I've talked about. Integrity of the data is a key aspect. And the fact is, because blockchain can work across many different areas, you can have real-time reconciliation. The whole system is based on security, is cryptography, and privacy is actually, of course, important. What this means is there is an environment where entities which are generally competing with each other can control who has what access. And of course, the ultimate thing is we can give you provenance of a particular product. Who had it? How long did they have it for? What did they do with it in some cases, depending on the sensors that you've used? And who had it after them in a chronological order. What does Pharma Trust do? Essentially, in its basic form, we track products from the point of manufacture to the point of consumption and all the data points in the middle. And that might seem quite complicated, but the way we do it from a technological perspective, from using APIs and mobile phone apps, means we are a truly global organization. And we'll show you some of the entities that we work with. So the benefits, generally, cost savings are significant. We can automate a lot of processes. And of course, auditability becomes very easy. You will have clear data on who had it, and you know that data can't be changed. It's a global solution that we provide using mobile phone apps in particular cases and APIs in more developed countries. But the interesting thing from us is the data and AI capabilities. Once you have good data, you can do some really clever things with data analytics, from predictive analysis to reducing costs and increasing efficiencies. We have a number of logistics apps that can show you exactly where various drugs are in the pipeline, what you should plan for, and where they are going. And of course, we create data dashboards depending on particular client needs, be it a regulator, a government institution, or a pharmaceutical company. Ultimately, we do have a free app that can show consumers or clinicians who are administering drugs the complete provenance of these drugs, not just who had it, but also the chain of condition, i.e. what kind of environment was it stayed in? Was it kept in various temperature parameters? As you know, you can have a genuine article, but if it's not kept in the correct environmental conditions, it's going to become ineffective. So, our solution works in low and middle income countries as well as developed countries, and of course offers benefits for a number of different organizations. Now, in terms of Pharma Trust and where we are, and coming back to blockchain acceptance and the distinction between cryptocurrencies and blockchain, we have recently been awarded the US FDA blockchain data interchange pilot, again with a consortium with T-Systems. We are the Oracle Healthcare lead for their retail blockchain consortium, and we are working with the government of Mongolia to install our system across the country and various other, actually, satellite companies, because we were featured in the OECD report. So I think the question nowadays is not how do we stop counterfeit drugs, but which system or which process should we use to safeguard our consumers? Because there are now technological, cost-effective methods such as ours to do it. It's a matter of will to actually install them, and it's not cost prohibitive anymore. Thank you very much.
So now if we could also actually, because Adebayo, you shared some of the personal experience, but now linking back to actually what is the technology you developed, how does it work, and if you could walk us through your experience.
Yes. So what we have built is an AI platform for real-time drug quality checking, surveillance, reporting, and monitoring. And it consists of four components. The first component is what you see there, which essentially is a miniaturized spectrometer. We call it a nanoscanner because what has happened here is that we have been able to update the sensor and make it programmable in the sense that we usually in the second component build what we call customized databases where we have reference molecular fingerprints or spectral signatures of drugs, finished formulations in the cloud. And then when you go on the mobile application to check for a particular drug, and you select, say, you want to test for vitamin C, you select that in the database. What you have selected provides information to the AI to inform the spectrometer to choose a specific wavelength of light to generate the spectral fingerprint. And so what that means is that we have less components in the hardware, so we're able to have it in a much more smaller case like this. But even more importantly is that we have less noise in the fingerprint that is generated because we use the near-infrared zone. And by being able to select a specific wavelength for which we can have, or for which the AI knows that the material has the most information for, we're able to reduce the number of false positives that we get through the testing process. So this is the hardware piece that I described, and then the second piece was the customized databases that I mentioned. But what actually integrates all of this is our proprietary neural network. So neural networks are a form of, so there's no real artificial intelligence, that's just a metaphor for machine learning. And so there are different ways in which you can write machine learning programs. For us, what we're using is a type of machine learning framework that is known as neural networks. And so what we do with the AI, I'll just use that as a metaphor here, is that we train it to recognize what a fingerprint of a pure reference sample looks like. And then we then set the bounds of what is allowed for variability, because batch to batch, when licensed manufacturers produce, there is some acceptable batch to batch variation that is inbuilt into the model. And since it's a deep learning model, it's able to learn that with some data collection upfront. And so this is the technology. And what this enables us to do is that you can actually use a mobile phone application either on the Android app or on the iPhone app to carry out a test. And so in terms of our differentiation, it helps with real-time testing in the field, and more importantly, with distribution of the information that has been generated. So on top of the testing results, it is now possible for a drug regulator to actually have real-time information about where all the scans are going on, where all the bad drugs are showing up. They're able to have real-time surveillance information about the level of quality through a drug supply chain. So this is essentially what the technology is.
Thank you so much for sharing, Adebayo, about how nanoscanners can be used, and particularly having that mobile application. We know that even when they're lacking other resources, that most people in rural areas will at least have access to a mobile phone. So I think that's going to be a hugely, a big strength of the technology that you have developed. And I think now what we're going to do is move into our next startup. So our first half of the panel is all featuring tech startups. So if the video line and live is ready to transmit from Kigali, Rwanda, we will be able to show you a demonstration of the startup Zipline, who is currently using drones for a delivery of essential medicines. And online, we have Israel Bempi, who is currently leading Zipline's engagement with the government in Rwanda, including integration in the healthcare system. Zipline is partnered with the governments of Rwanda and Uganda to operate the world's first national drone delivery program for medical products. And Israel was the former IPSF president, so another example of youth engagement and going on to do exciting and great things. Hello, Israel, are you there?
Hello, you are catching me on the right time. So this is one of our Zipline drones, which is getting ready to go out to a delivery to a hospital. And I'll be explaining what it does, and I'll first let you watch this. It will start and launch from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. And that one is off. So as I take you through the tour of our operation and the distribution center, one of the goals that Zipline is trying to solve is to be able to access medical products whenever you want them. And specifically to the conversation today is that most communities in rural areas resort to fake medicine or substandard medicine just because they can't access the right set of medicines. And so here's our fulfillment operations, and my colleague here is packing the next package that will be going out to the hospital. And we deliver mainly blood and different blood products, but we also deliver a certain set of medical products since last month, and that's what we've been doing. The process, how it does is, health facilities place their orders when they need it via phone, or they can even WhatsApp us or text us or an online portal. And after they will have placed their order, we will dispatch the order within less than 10 minutes. And when it reaches the hospital, as the drone that you just saw take off, it will arrive at the hospital and then release a package just like this, which will land at the hospital in a spot that they delineate. And this has allowed us, for example, here in Rwanda, for blood to be able to access the most rare blood products. And in Ghana, where we started with medical products, patients have been accessing the most rare medical products and the right quality of medical products that they are doing. And we are expanding that in different countries. This is our fleet of drones, and this is pretty much the flight operations area. And how this technology works is we have the big body of the drone. We have the wings on that side. Then we have, these are the batteries. And we have a payload bay. So this is where that package that I just showed you will go in. They will then take this drone, put it on this launcher, which is a catapult that launches it from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. And on its return, we built a structure that would be capturing the drone back when it returns from its delivery, and then it would land here. And so this distribution center does pretty much between 60 and 70 deliveries per day. I'll let you speak again, Oksana, and thank you so much for following. I'm happy to take any questions, or if you want me to emphasize on any part of our distribution center, I'd be happy to do that.
Yes, thank you so much for showing us your operations. And our first question would be around how do you think this could specifically benefit in terms of fighting fake medicines? And also, what are sort of the daily challenges that you are currently working out in also using this novel delivery method?
What has changed here in Rwanda, and we believe that one of the first things that we aim to solve for is what is it that people usually lack, and what is the reason why they lack it. Most health facilities, primary healthcare facilities, or most national health supply chain will not stock themselves for the right set of medical products. They will not stock themselves for the most expensive medical product, or they will only stock themselves for the products that they can afford and the products that they can be able to transport to the health facilities at which they are delivering. And so for us, we believe that a technology like this will allow access to all sorts of medical products, especially the ones that patients in local communities would be tempted to go and purchase legally on markets or something like that. That also couples with strong health systems in general, which would make sure that these products are available to the market. But we've also been working with the right companies like Novartis recently, where we are ensuring the access to products that they make and make sure that they reach the last mile. Because all the major players have been only limited, or they have the capacity to deliver, until in the country, but the challenge has always been there to be able to assure access to the last mile of needs and patients where they are.
Wonderful. And currently, how many of these drones are you sending out a day?
Here, this is one of the distribution center, and we have another distribution center in Eastern Rwanda, and we have a couple of them in Ghana. So one distribution center is able to do 150 deliveries a day. And that's in rain, in the dark, at any time of the day we do that.
Okay, and I think at this, we'll take one question from the audience for specifically for Israel before we say goodbye to you. So do we have any questions from the audience at this time? So I see a hand just over here. If we could get a mic, please.
Hi, Israel. I'm just really empowered by your entire startup, and I think it's a huge step in the right direction, especially in African countries. So being from Kenya, I've noticed that a lot of the pitfalls within the healthcare sector come from the rural access to hospitals themselves. And so a lot of the drones that you're sending dispatch the products to the hospital. And what is your take on the ways that people in rural communities can access the hospitals, because that tends to be a problem?
That's a great question. I think one of the solutions here in Rwanda particularly, the government has put so much effort into extending, building health posts and health centers in almost all communities. And the goal in Rwanda is making sure that each citizen can access a health facility, a health service, or any medical product within 30 minutes that as they need them. And I mean, for us, we believe even if health facilities still continue to be difficult to access, but one of the challenges that is there is that even when you can reach the facility, even if it takes 2 or 3 hours, it's often time that you cannot find the right set of products that you need or the right set of services that you need. And for us, pretty much what we see ourselves as a system strengthening service that we give with the government and partner with the government, so that the hospital and the health facility at the primary level can be able to access that. And that's why we extend our service not only to the largest hospital, but we reach even the farthest health centers, which is usually are within a walking distance from each citizen in the country. And so that's one of the things that we've been aiming to do. And our goal is pretty much to extend to all 470 health facilities here in Rwanda and to more than 2,000 health facilities in Ghana, for example.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this tour and demonstration. It's been really fascinating to learn about how quickly things have moved, and that this is already happening, and that we'll probably see this move on to other countries quite rapidly. So thank you very much for your contribution. Next, we'll move on to opening questions to our other panelists. My first question would be actually redirected back to Raja around the blockchain's really taken the world by storm. It's been on countless front page news items, usually at the beginning linked with crypto, but more and more is being recognized as an optimal solution for highly regulated markets. And really, pharmaceutical industry is one of the most regulated of all. So what do you think in terms of, at least in Europe, we have the Falsified Medicines Directive that was implemented in 2019. And from being a non-techie, I understand that this is a cloud-based system. So what are the advantages, disadvantages of that, and how is blockchain different?
Yeah. So sorry, I should have mentioned, not only are we working with the FDA in the US, we're the only blockchain company that's authorized under the FMD regulations as part of the NMVS programs that they have. So in terms of the structure of the FMD or regulatory regime, what we can do is, through our smart contract capabilities, you can have regulation by exception. So you don't have to do random checks. You don't have to have multitudes of paper or even digital records. You can automatically see which parties are complying with the regulations and which are not. And in fact, I think one of the things the FDA is trying to do is have better, easier access and quicker access to those kind of records. Another area, for instance, that we do work in is in the cell and gene therapy area. And again, that is actually driven by the FDA because these are time-sensitive treatments. You need them within 20 days, and it's usually for cancer or leukemia. Again, if the FDA is comfortable that the records that they've got are not changeable, they know who had it, when they had it, there's no finger pointing going on, you know, I didn't have it, no, it's his fault, etc., etc. It just makes that whole regulatory process so much easier and so much better.
And also for the monitoring and surveillance element, because we do know that that's one area that needs vast improvement in terms of reporting of substandard and falsified medicines.
Cold chain is absolutely essential. As I said earlier, our systems work with any sensor, so we're sensor neutral. So you can set temperature parameters, and in fact, that's what happens with the CGT service. If the particular treatment goes out certain environmental conditions, it automatically sets notifications, and that either is destroyed or a new treatment scheduled. So you can do the same thing with, obviously, normal medicines as well.
And what first motivated you to even enter in this space? Because your first career is as a barrister, as a lawyer. How did you move into this area of substandard falsified medicines?
Similar stories. I'm a lawyer, so obviously I used to read about smart contracts, and that led me to blockchain. But it's actually a personal incident. One of my relatives was actually taking counterfeit drugs.
Well, I think there's no greater motivation than when it hits close to home. And moving on to Adebayo, in terms of your first, you were 15 when this first happened. When did you first begin to move into an entrepreneurial space? I think you're a real role model for the young people in the room to have, at such a young age, been able to establish a startup, a company, do something about not waiting until you have a degree and a title and a license to get involved with problem solving. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that process and your advice to groups like the WHO and other international bodies that could really support young entrepreneurs in digital health in this global space, particularly as WHO has established this new digital health department. So what would you envision?
Yeah, so at the heart of my journey to entrepreneurship was that I really wanted to solve this problem. And so in the science space, all of that work was focused on what is the best technological solution we can actually create that would be useful to a patient in the field. That was the initial focus. When I got into Yale, the Yale IP department actually focuses on taking lab-based solutions into the market. So I think that's where, like in the US, the ecosystem for innovation is very different from, say, like Nigeria, where it's still very functional research. And many of the scientists are not really thinking about ways to take lab work into the industry. At Yale, there was actually that focus on saying, if you have the best ideas, even if you're not in the lab, say you're a management student or a liberal arts student and you have a very good idea that's science-based, Yale provided us with a lab space to work from, provided an IP team to provide the support, and linked us to the wider healthcare system to actually carry out pilot projects. So overall, in terms of sort of addressing that and giving advice to young people, is to sort of leverage the ecosystems for innovation within your university and within the wider community. Maybe your government or state government has an innovation lab where you can leverage some of those resources for incubating your ideas. In terms of the public space, however, like the WHO, the UN, and governments in general, I think the most important thing is because the beauty about digital technology is the fact that it's open access. That's the very big thing. And so what that means is that for you to be able to get the best ideas in, the barriers to entry to your programs should not exist. And so what that means is that you need to have regular, rolling basis, open calls for the best ideas to come in across well-defined industries, specifically targeting particular problems. So one thing that Yale does so well, and I keep talking about Yale because it's like that's where I've seen the best type of healthcare incubation system, is that every year there's a regular call for ideas around the major big health problems, both locally in the US as well as in the rest of the world. And so each of the kids in the university actually saying, I want to tackle this problem. They go around, find the other kids in the university and say, let's tackle this together using technology. So one thing the WHO can do is to come up with the problem statements. What are the biggest problem statements that we're facing in the world of healthcare today? Right, so things around falsification of medications, things around surveillance of drug quality through the supply chain, things around enabling access to very expensive life-saving medications. You know, this is some of the big problems I'm just putting in buckets, right? But the WHO obviously has more in-depth knowledge of what are the most critical things. And then rolling that out as a problem statement to the world and asking young people to come up in groups in the universities to provide the initial problem statement solution, leveraging technology. This would be a particular model that I think they can follow with very good results. And obviously, there's always the importance of being able to seed the ideas, right? So if you look at Canada now, what Canada is doing, there's a huge problem with opioids. 8,000 Canadians died over the last 2 years from the opioid crisis. What the Canadian government did, something very similar. They brought together experts in this field. They created a problem statement, and they asked Canadians, not even saying young or old, just Canadians, to submit ideas to solve this problem. And now they have shortlisted 12 people. And if you look at the ideas that I have personally gone through, they're amazing, right? And I think that's how you can actually, first of all, make sure there's no barriers to providing solutions, create a problem statement, and enable people submit and then seed them to produce the initial pilot projects. This would be the approach I would recommend.
Well, you do hear a lot about public-private partnerships and trying to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, but what you brought to the picture today is that actually academia and universities have a really important role to play in fostering that as well. And being here with my delegation from University College London, I think that's an excellent point to be made. At this point, I would like to also open the floor for more questions to both Raja and Adebayo from you. So just over here, please.
Thank you very much. So thank you for your talk. It was very, very insightful. My question is for Raja, please. So I definitely used to associate Bitcoin with blockchain, that's for sure. So thanks for explaining it very well. So this morning, I attended a talk by Chemonics, and they explained that they use temperature sensors to monitor the supply chain of medicines to make sure they have the correct temperature and humidity environmental conditions to make sure they get to the patient or to the pharmacy into the correct stage. So I was wondering if Pharma Trust works with similar organizations that links the quality data of medicines to the data you have using blockchain. So we not only find out if it's authentic, but also if it's genuine and to the right quality. Thank you.
So we're actually, as a technology or platform sensor neutral. So we can use a variety of different sensors. For example, there are GSM sensors, which will give you real-time tracking information and condition depending on the type you use. You can even have tilt sensors nowadays. We tend to, at the moment, partner with IBM, simply because they produce very, very small sensors, and we're experimenting with some that are smaller than a grain of rice. Okay, so the sensor agnostic approach is something we strategically built in because essentially IoT is what we're gearing up for. And once the IoT system come on board, coupled with AI, actually blockchain becomes even more important, because when there is less kind of surveillance or monitoring by humans, you want to make sure you know where there were issues or where there were problems. In short, yes, we can work with a variety of different sensor types to ensure the quality of the product that gets to the end user.
Okay, we have another question just over here, please.
Thank you. Hello, I have a question for Dr. Sharif. I would like to ask about the security of the blockchain system, because it has been long hailed as unhackable, but we've been hearing reports now and then of cybercrime organizations being able to hack, and I quote an article from the MIT that they hacked up to $2 billion from the blockchain system from 2018 till now. So what are the implications of such vulnerabilities to using such a system in a sector that is as vital as healthcare?
Well, firstly, I'd say, if you want to take the Pepsi challenge, I'd go with blockchain over any cloud-based system. And we know that from significant hacks that have been done on even companies like Equifax and other banks. The second thing is, the reason, just to remind you, Bitcoin is the end product, blockchain is the product that allows Bitcoin to happen. Okay, so we're dealing with blockchain here. Now, the reason for the popularity of Bitcoin is, frankly, no one's actually been able to hack it. Most of the hacks that you're talking about tend to be on exchanges or wallets. Okay, so it's not the integrity of the underlying infrastructure. It's where you store your Bitcoins that is at issue. So it's rather like saying, okay, I've got a wallet, right? But, if I leave it here, somebody's going to pick it up. It's not much in it. But the currency underlying it is still there. It still works. So there's a slight, I think, confusion between what's happening at the platform layer and what's happening with the tools that are used to store those assets. But again, I would still say, and I think most people accept, blockchain is far more secure than any other technological system out there, and that's why the public-private key security is so important.
Okay, one more question right here.
Hello, thank you very much for your presentations, really inspiring. My question is about your sustainable expansion strategy. How do you want to solve, how will you expand your business in other countries in a sustainable manner? Because I noticed that you are now operating in some countries, so I just wanted to hear your thoughts about your strategy on expanding your business in other countries who are mostly in need. My question is to both of you. Thank you very much.
Okay. For us, it's about partnerships. So we think that the big issue of falsified and substandard drugs requires a multi-layered approach that involves both the public sector and the private sector, involves different types of technologies like blockchain, like our technology, AI systems, and even just pure good old policy and regulation, right? So for us, our approach to the market is really building those partnerships with bodies like the United Nations, the WHO, with local FDAs in the various countries, particularly in Africa and Southeast Asia. That is the sort of top-level strategy for us in going to the market, because for very high-tech solutions like ours, you need to build what is known as a whole product, right? So because you would have, for us, we provide, what we started out, what we're offering was drug quality checking. And then we found out that many of the FDAs in Africa also wanted a tool for surveillance, also wanted a tool for reporting, also wanted a tool for monitoring and in-house communication. And so what that has led us to do is to find the other technology partners to build that solution around. So as I said, I've moved, in my answering your question, I moved from the strategy, top-level strategy of partnerships to meeting the demand of the market and partnering with other technology providers to build a whole product. And then lastly, in a very tactical sense, because we cannot be everywhere, and the big issue of falsified and substandard drugs particularly affects 54 countries in Africa, 13 plus countries in Southeast Asia. Our approach has also been to find local distributors in those markets that already have the contacts with the various channels like hospitals, pharmacies, and local FDAs to get the solution to. So that's the way we're looking to grow, and we've been quite successful that way. We have a local distributor in Myanmar who has been able to get the product into other parts of Southeast Asia, even though we're not on the ground there. We're also piloting the same process in South America as well. In Colombia, we just recently signed a distribution arrangement with a local partner there as well. So that's the approach we are taking to scale.
I would second all those points, actually, but what I would also add from our approach is you really need to understand what the incentivization program is. So for mainly regulators and governments, it tends to be consumer safety. I want to get rid of fake medicines, etc. Private organizations, as I said in some of the statistics I showed you, that comes down lower down on the list. But what they're really interested in is the data. Right? Data is the fuel of the new industrial age that we work in. So if you can capture both of those incentives, then you're in a really good place. As I said earlier, it's no longer a question of how can I stop counterfeit or substandard drugs. It's which system am I going to use, because the cost effectiveness has dropped significantly. One of the countries we were dealing with, they were quoted by a large multinational. I think it was something like $90 million, right? Ours is a fraction of that, but the effect is the same. Yeah?
Okay, so I've also just been informed that, as you would have it, our session is on technology and digital health, and we've had a technology glitch, which means our online viewers via WebEx have only just been able to join us now. So I would like to, at this moment, just welcome our online viewers to our Digital Natives Fight Fake Medicines event. Hello to everyone who is listening online. And next, we are going to move from looking at the technological solutions to a broader overview of the problem. We are all gathered at the World Health Assembly, so it is appropriate to hear from the WHO leaders themselves who are approaching this issue. So our next speaker is Pernette Bourdillon-Estève. She is an analyst on the substandard and falsified medical products team at the WHO. So handing it over to Pernette. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oksana. Yes, all right. So as Oksana said, I work for the WHO group that deals with substandard and falsified medical products. WHO has recognized for a number of years now, back in 2011, through a World Health Assembly resolution, that substandard and falsified medical products are an unacceptable risk to public health. In fact, they tend to undermine all public health investments. You can do all you want to have an agenda for sustainable development goals, and goal 3 in particular is about public health. Our Director General, Dr. Tedros, has explained the WHO's triple billion strategy, which is about universal health coverage, healthier populations, and health emergencies. You can do all you want to improve access to quality, safe, affordable, and efficacious medical products, making sure that it goes all the way to the last line. But all those efforts will basically be wasted if the product that the patients receive at the very end are either substandard or falsified. So in response, WHO has set up a member state mechanism and a global surveillance and monitoring system. I'll touch base on both of those quite briefly, but I'm more than available for questions during the panel session and afterwards. In 2017, and I'm grateful to Adebayo and Raja to have mentioned this, and also Oksana, we published 2 landmark documents. The documents were landmark in the sense that it's the first time WHO planted out the flag, they marked the position saying, this is what we know. It's based on a literature review of over 10 years of publications, about 100 publications, on the best available data at this stage. And this shows that over 10% of medicines in low and middle income countries fail laboratory testing. There will be differences from country to country between different medicines. So this is an average, and it's a conservative estimate because it's based on what is available with the best available data. There's heterogeneous definitions, and I thank Adebayo because you've saved time for me. WHO has also agreed on the definitions of substandard, falsified, and unregistered medical products. And it's important to highlight here that the notion of intellectual property is absolutely not taken into account. This is a public health perspective only. And over $30 billion are spent each year in low and middle income countries on substandard or falsified medicines. And I say here medicines rather than medical products because the field studies on which these figures are based covered medicines rather than the wider range of medical products. So not necessarily about vaccines, nor APIs, nor in vitro diagnostics. This 30 billion figure, it's a spending cost. It's how much it cost one person to buy one dose or one treatment of the substandard or falsified medicine. Not how much it cost to buy it a second time, not how much it cost them in terms of stigma, not how much it cost them in terms of days lost, etc., etc. And you can imagine how difficult it is to calculate the cost and the impact that this has in terms of antimicrobial resistance burden, in terms of trust in health systems. I think it was Raja or Oksana, you were saying, if you can't trust the health system anymore, where do you turn to next to get your medical products? So all of this is a cost that's not taken into account in this 30 billion figure on spending. And this document has 2 impact models which have been developed by the University of Edinburgh and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Both models focus on only 2 particular diseases in 2 particular populations, under 5s in sub-Saharan Africa. And in both cases, you have about 170,000 deaths and 115,000 deaths caused by SF, antibiotics, or antimalarials. And with the antimalarials, they calculated that, once again, this is the spending, it's not the cost, it would be over 38 million. So if you multiplied that for each disease in the world, for each region in the world, you can imagine that the figure might be significantly higher. But this is done with the best available data at that stage. I'm going to show you now a video that basically gives you the same message than what Adebayo gave you. We can talk about access, and this shows you what happens at the last mile when children and adults get something that is either substandard or falsified. I insist always on using the terms substandard or falsified because from a public health impact, it is almost, and I highlight the word almost, an academic difference whether it is substandard or falsified. Either the patient gets a medicine that is of the right quality, safe, efficacious, either it's not. And then the reason, the root cause for which it's either substandard or falsified then requires a different response. This video here was taken by Médecins Sans Frontières. Can I have the video, please? Who did a very good job. They started having a cohort of patients in DRC, in the northeastern region near Ituri, near the border with Uganda. A number of patients started presenting with dystonic paralysis. So it was paralysis of the face, neck, upper torso, quite painful. All the 5 children showed in this video survived, but over the course of a few months, there were over 1,000 people who were taken charge of by MSF for this unknown disease. And this video was taken by MSF not for the pleasure of taking that video, it's because they couldn't identify what was causing this toxic reaction. So they sent this video around the world to different specialists, toxicologists, asking them, what do you think causes this? And their response corroborated the results of the biological samples, the analysis that had been done. And all of the people who were affected by this had high levels of haloperidol contamination in their blood. So it's a product that's used for to treat schizophrenia, and there was no reason for them to have that. But this is a part of the world where access to quality, safe, efficacious medical products is difficult for logistical, for political reasons, for all sorts of reasons. And most of these people thought they were taking diazepam. And in that region, diazepam is used to treat malaria. Of course, it's not recommended by WHO to treat malaria, but it will tend to calm the shivers in the children when they're having the fever. And ironically, the antidote to an overdose of haloperidol is diazepam. Genuine diazepam, of course. So this shows you how the last mile, although it is the mile where you have the greatest number of stakeholders and transactions, is also the least supervised and therefore might be the most vulnerable to SF medical products. So why does this happen? Well, because you've got limited access to medicines, medical products as well, in terms of availability, acceptability, and affordability. Oh, just one thing. I want to go back. I apologize. I forgot to explain what happened here. With this video, what happened here, this is the most important, is there was difficult access to medical products in that region. People could not get their hands on the right treatment. And a wholesaler in a neighboring country had a stock of haloperidol whose expiry date was nearing the shelf life. They didn't know what to do with the haloperidol, and they couldn't sell it. There was no market for it. So they deep-listed the haloperidol, and they put it into bottles which were labeled diazepam, shipped that over the border, and sold it as diazepam. So exactly like Adebayo's story, where he thought he was getting salbutamol, you got a sleeping pill. So it's the same thing. They replaced a product with another because there was a strong demand. And there was no oversight in the place where the products were sold. There was no blockchain, no nothing, so as to trace what happened. In that region, people also tend to take tablets by the tablet itself. They'll put it in a little piece of newspaper, and they'll take it at home, and they'll save it for whenever they need medicine. So it was very difficult for MSF to identify what was the root cause, what happened. And they did a brilliant job identifying that, and they contacted us, and we worked with them to identify what the root cause was and to stop the shortage of this issue. Just want to keep to time. So it's when you've got access issues or poor governance issues, and in poor governance, we're talking about poor procurement practices, so insufficient due diligence, unethical practice, or corruption. Within weak technical capacity, it's mainly the capacity of the Regulatory Medicines Agency, but it can extend to the technical capacity of the other regulatory bodies, whether it is judiciary or customs or the other bodies within a country, which are there to ensure that what goes along the supply chain stays in the same level of quality as it did when it entered the supply chain the first time. So that's all very well to have identified the root causes, but what does WHO do about it? Well, the first thing is, we realized that the evidence-based around substandard and falsified medical data is fragmented. The way in which people collect data is heterogeneous, and the first reason for that is people use, for a long time, and continue to use, different definitions. You might have a big headline that says, we've seized 15 tons of counterfeit products, but when you look into it, most of the projects might simply be unregistered. They're not necessarily substandard, and they're not necessarily falsified. So as to be, because this is a multifaceted problem, you're going to need a multifaceted solution. But you want to be able to have a precise solution to each. And I think it was Raja who was saying the beauty about data this day is that it allows you to have precise solutions, precise interventions. So WHO has set up a global surveillance and monitoring system, which is basically a case reporting database that's informed by trained focal points. And this data is continuously analyzed. And on the basis of those analyses, we can provide quite innovative solutions based on the vulnerabilities that we have identified in each region and in each country. And this sound evidence base will guide regulatory decisions and the development of the most appropriate technological tools. So we've also developed a strategy, not just us, the member states of WHO, which is centered around prevention, detection, and response. The first thing that you want to do is you want to ensure that quality is demanded at all levels of the supply chain. Whether it is the end buyer, the patient, they must know that they probably shouldn't be buying medicines or medical products from the street market, nor from unregulated internet websites. And the supply chain's integrity must be guaranteed from end to end. The products must not degrade, and then falsified products must not be entered into the supply chain. So here, you've got a number of elements that my predecessors have mentioned. Once these products have been prevented, if that hasn't happened, you want to make sure that they've been detected. And then, once they have been detected, that's all very well, but you have to report them, and you have to report them to the appropriate authorities. And detection is about access to the right laboratories, access to the right screening technologies. And you want to be able to have risk-based inspection programs, because these cost a lot of money, but you want to be able to do them right. And finally, if you've detected something, well, the first thing you want to do is you want to protect public health. That's the first thing, most important for all. And once you have protected public health, you want to try and understand, based on those lessons learned, what's happened, and you want to prevent recurrence. So WHO works along those 12 different functions under those 3 pillars, and this is just a selection of some of the work that we do. We're conducting insight studies in 4 countries at the moment. We're working with the FIP on inserting mandatory pharmaceutical curricula around SF medical products in 5 pilot universities in sub-Saharan Africa. The member state mechanism, which I've mentioned just before, is working on track and trace methods, so this is all linked. We're also working on risk-based post-market surveillance field surveys and developing an application to make this easy. Easy to conduct, easy to design, easy to monitor, and easy to take action from the information that you've based the information that the survey has given you. We've piloted a reporting application for healthcare professionals. Oh, sorry. And we do a number, I've got 2 slides and then I'm gone. And we're working on and we regularly issue medical product alerts. We also do a number of regional and national workshops. This is the last slide, before last slide. This is just to show you the, just this year, so we're not yet halfway through the year, and we've already issued 6 or 7 medical product alerts. These alerts have affected every region of the world, from Latin America, sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, Europe. So we've had rabies vaccine, leukemia treatments, oral cholera vaccines, meningitis vaccines, contaminated and falsified antihypertensive that actually contained glibenclamide, so that's to treat sugar levels. And of course what happened there is the people who were taking the HCT started suffering from hypoglycemia, and somebody who was very clever had a limited laboratory access, and they tested it with the right reference standard, and they identified what the contaminant was without having access to the full quality control laboratory. So that's just to be highlighted as to what can be done everywhere. And then you've got leishmaniasis treatment, 2 different products that have been falsified in Iran and Pakistan, at the same time as there's a current outbreak of leishmaniasis in those regions. So you see, it will follow a supply and demand rationale as well. All of these products for this year have been falsified, but we will also issue medical product alerts on substandard products. These are only the ones on which we have issued an alert this year, but we've received many, many more notifications from the start of the year. And this is the last slide. I just want to say that if you want to do something about substandard and falsified medical products, nothing will be done without political will. The political will is essential to translate action at the global level to sustainable actions on the ground. You want to support the right initiatives, the right startups. You want to support the right movements. You want to also convince stakeholders that regulatory systems are a sound investment. Oksana was saying how the pharmaceutical sector was one of the most regulated in the world, not necessarily always in LMICs, and it's so important because that will guarantee the quality, safety, and efficacy of products that reach patients. And the last thing is about multi-stakeholder engagement. It is very important to have cooperation, coordination, both at national level and international level. And that's it.
Thank you very much to Pernette for providing what was a very insightful overview of the leadership role WHO is providing and some of the case studies that were really quite horrific to witness. At this stage, could we please thank our innovators who were part of panel 1 of today's session for their contributions. Yes. This brings us to the point in the program where we look at the multi-stakeholder contributions in terms of responding to the substandard and falsified medicines global health threat. And to start off this panel discussion, it is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Suburi Muvunyi, who is the Director General of the Clinical and Public Health Services for the Ministry of Health of Rwanda, to provide an oversight of the Rwandan experience, especially as leaders in this digital space. So thank you very much for your time. We're very grateful to have you here. And then I will welcome the rest of our panel to join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all. First of all, I want to thank you, the organizers, for this opportunity to come here and discuss, exchange around fake medicine. I have got actually a keynote address prepared by my minister in charge of primary health care, but is retained in World Health Assembly 72nd Committee A. So I got a statement. I am not going to read it, just because everything has been well said, well discussed with our speakers. Just allow me to start with something. I found that transborder smuggling of fake medicine need to be really investigated or discussed, or we need to conduct further research on that. Yes, we can have a good system in Ghana, but what happened in the neighboring country? So, if smugglers, they know that system in Ghana is good, they will always shift to the other country with weak regulatory system. So, and this can happen everywhere. Actually, your last slide, where you sampled some countries, this phenomenon exists everywhere. Myself, I've been traveling on behalf of my country, of African Union, or UN system, in many African countries. And the problem of fake medicine is real. And what you have discovered with Médecins Sans Frontières can be seen everywhere. You can see fake medicine everywhere. Actually, it is easier to get fake medicine than condom in some countries because of faith-based organizations say no condom. But if you are looking for a fake medicine, fake salbutamol, fake something, it is easier. So really, we know the consequences. I'm not going to repeat the consequences. The facts are real, are there, and we know all facts. The second thing I want to really highlight is someone in charge of my responsibility is the provision of quality health services to our population in Rwanda. So my duty is to make sure that you get consultation, you get a procedure, medical procedure or something, but at the end of the day, what you need is medicine. You can't treat anyone without medicine. I mean, accessibility to quality and quantity medicine product. So now, if you have only fake or substandard or falsified medicine, so you understand you are not doing anything good. We better become like witch doctors. At least they know the plants and everything. I hope you understand where I am coming from. So in Rwanda, one of the reliable and sustainable solutions is actually digital health. Digital health. And we are glad, I am glad that this morning in WHO remarks, we learned that the digital health guidelines has been released. So that is one of the basic solutions, really to make sure that medicine are traced, medicine are controlled, medicine are, so we use really licensed medicine. So, and there are many technologies around, and we want to thank again Mr. Adebayo and Mr. Raja and others. About Zipline, actually, myself, I visited this launching site just to understand this thing is real. Not only for blood products, but also we are moving to deliver critical medicine with that. So there are many ways, I mean digital ways to reach where we want to go. One of the technologies is traceability, I mean global standard one. So we should stop experiencing, piloting, doing this or that. So we should really start implement. Like Roger, who explained very well blockchain. I couldn't understand what blockchain was, but with you, at least now I think I understand somehow. And there is another terminology. Of course, we know artificial intelligence, but what is IoT? What is this again? Internet of Things. Who knows that? Raise your hands. We are not so, so that's what I meant. But most not probably from Africa, where I come from. So I don't want to be long. I think the time is over, and that is what I wanted to deliver as a message. Fake medicine, substandard, it is a real thing, so we need to do something, and one of the reliable, sustainable solutions is digital health solutions. Thank you.
So, if you could have a seat just right here, please. Over here. It is now my great pleasure to introduce the rest of our panel, who will be providing a diverse array of perspectives, experts from different fields to really enrich in our discussion. So I would like to welcome Dr. Catherine Duggan, Professor Dr. Catherine Duggan, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the International Pharmaceutical Federation, and she took up this role in The Hague in June 2018. The FIP is an advocacy group with 144 member organizations and 4 million members that represent FIP. She is responsible for developing and delivering this strategy, and I would also like to add that she is the first female to hold the post of CEO of FIP. So, wonderful achievement. I would also like to welcome to the stage Cynthia Guinolet, who represents the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers and Associations, and a longtime partner and friend of the Fight the Fakes campaign. She is the head of health systems and African policy at IFPMA, and we're very pleased to have her with us today. And Edward Kelly, who is the director of the Department of Service Delivery and Safety at the WHO. In this role, he leads efforts to strengthen safety, quality, integration, and people-centeredness of health services globally, and is the lead for WHO's work on digital health in terms of the global strategy. And we also will have our academic perspective, and I'd like to welcome to the stage Professor Serge Rudaz, who is at the School of Pharmaceutical Sciences at the University of Geneva, where he leads the Biomedical and Metabolomics Analysis Group. And he is a member of the management board of the Swiss Center of Applied Human Toxicology Foundation and president of the Swiss Metabolomics Society and vice president of PharmElp, an association centered to support the quality control and screening of falsified medicines in emerging countries. So we have an excellent lineup here of really, I think, almost all sectors. So I will return my first question actually to our Director General here. In terms of the situation in the ground, when you talked about porous borders. How is Rwanda controlling the problem, and are you getting an influx from other areas that are perhaps struggling with this detection?
Well, before even controlling the situation at the border, of course, we are in discussion, we are partnering with our neighbors. And of course, Africa is composed by, I think, 5 regions, economic regions. And Rwanda is both in the East African community region and the Central Africa community region. So we always have a discussion, we plan together, we discuss all these issues. I mean, transborder, health problems across the borders. And for example, malaria problem is not a national problem only, so we have to discuss with our neighbors. So, but for ourselves, what do we do? The first thing is the establishment of Food and Drug Authority, just to regulate, to control, to license, to practice the traceability of, and to provide import licenses. So that is what we try to do, really to manage to mitigate the problem. And again, we conduct regular, of course, inspection. It is a shared responsibility between Rwanda FDA and the department I'm heading. So we regularly conduct inspection, not only for medical services, but also we investigate what is happening with the pharmaceutical component of the health facilities. And well, so I don't want to go into details, but that is what we do. The other thing is digital health. Digital health, that is what we do. I will start with the electronic medical records. It is not only for, of course, it is not only for pharmaceutical services, but we have a module for pharmaceutical services. So before you even prescribe, you can prescribe, but before you deliver a medicine, of course, you pass through the system, right? And the medical insurance, we never pay if it is not well controlled. So that is one of the things we use. And of course, in Rwanda, electronic medical records system are implemented across the health facilities, being public or private. Someone said the structure of Rwanda health system is from community health workers, about 60,000, health posts, more than 800, health centers, more than 500, district hospitals, and so on. And we have implemented electronic EMR at all hospitals, and we are also implementing at and at the health center level. Of course, we are monitoring the quality of medicine. That is one thing. But also we have been have been preparing to start full implementation of GS1 and the other. So basically, it is to strengthen the health system and have pay special attention to pharmaceutical services and continue the implementation of EMR and GS1.
Thank you for providing really multiple examples of how Rwanda is responding to this problem. Linking that then to Cynthia in terms of the role of the pharmaceutical industry, how do you see IFPMA members supporting countries like Rwanda, or what other work are you doing in terms of leading the fight against fake medicines?
Yeah, thank you, Oksana. And first, I would like to say I'm really happy to be here today. I'm glad to see so many great partners and people in the room. I think that the power of the Fight the Fakes campaign is to be able to bring all these partners together. And as IFPMA and being a partner, we are really proud of being here today. So thank you for organizing that. And because indeed we believe that collaboration is key and central. And as IFPMA and our members, we are committing for a long time. It's really a long-standing commitment to fight falsified medicines, and we have adopted a multi-pronged approach because you cannot solve this issue with only one system, one element, one tool. So what we're doing, we are looking, for example, as a regulatory system strengthening. It has been mentioned earlier, this is really core. So we are a partner of the African Medicines Regulatory Harmonizations Initiative. We are a member of this steering committee where we are helping there, supporting what they are doing. You've mentioned GS1. We are also supporting GS1 there, what they are doing. So GS1 is providing an international standard to allow interoperability of the system. We've got a lot of techie information earlier, so I will stop here. But that's really an important tool, and we will be in Nigeria this year in September for, again, a regional conference from GS1 for Africa for sterilization and track and trace in Africa. It's a complex tool to be put in place where you need, again, a lot of stakeholders on board to be sure that it's done at scale, because it also requires a lot of resources. We are also engaged in trying to gather more data, share evidence to inform decision making. It's really core and central. I think it has been said also the difficulty here, and that's something we should never forget, that falsified medicines is a criminal activity, and people are not punished for that crime. And something that we are doing also is advocating for government to make that activity a crime and for counterfeiters to be punished as they should be. And so we are advocating for the Medicrime Convention, currently the only international tool that make falsifying medicine a crime, and that also allows cooperation between countries. We have also mentioned that earlier. Without collaboration between countries, you will not solve the problem. Too. And as a company, we are also implementing tools, overt and covert technologies to protect our product, also trying to use the latest technologies. A lot that we are doing, and I know I don't have so much time to talk about all of that, but the last element, which is central in our strategy, is awareness raising, and that's why we're also a partner of Fight the Fakes campaign, because what we've seen, according to a latest survey that we did, is that only 97% of people think that they are not well informed about the threat of falsified medicine. So that's why we think it's core to raise awareness and so to engage in the campaign.
And yeah, that's a shocking statistic. Actually, it's very high, and I think actually one of the leaders in ensuring that patients are educated, that the wider population is aware of the dangers of medicines, really lies within the role of the pharmacist. So my next question then is directed at Catherine Duggan, who's CEO of the FIP, which represents pharmaceutical scientists as well as pharmacists, in terms of what is your vision and for pharmacists preventing substandard and falsified medicines, and what improvements do you think can be made?
Well, thank you, Oksana, and thank you very much for inviting me to represent FIP here at the panel today. may we say this is such a timely event, so important, so needed. And we actually have our president here, a selection of delegates from FIP and many of my team from FIP to kind of present a united front around how important pharmacy and pharmaceutical scientists take this. At FIP, we're passionate about this whole issue, and there are many ways that pharmacists can contribute to this. I just wanted to outline for those of you in the audience who don't know what FIP does for pharmacists on the ground, but also in collaboration, to take a moment to tell you that. If I may, for pharmacy, I think the issue of safe and effective medicines, from the time we start at university to the time we finish our practices, is a fundamental part of our DNA, from the production all the way through to the delivery of medicines. And some of the stories I've heard today, I think all of my profession would say they are shocking. There's going to be more we can do. But as a starter, at FIP, we've developed policies, we've developed guidance, we've collaborated with other professions, collaborated with WHO, collaborated with Fight the Fakes. And just recently, we have set up a technology forum where we want to take forward some of these ideas. And I would welcome colleagues in the room who don't necessarily associate themselves with the profession to take part and step up with us. So I wanted to say, Oksana, that for more than 20 years, FIP has been talking about this and creating policy statements. And we created a statement of policy on counterfeit medicines in 1999, way back last century. And what's a little bit shocking for us, I think, is to think that we still have 97% of patients in the public unaware or not well informed. So there's more for pharmacy to do in this area. At our Congress in Barcelona, we adopted our statement on that, and we understood the importance of this and built on this in 2003 during our council meeting at the FIP Congress in Sydney. It's a strong political message of the pharmacist profession to support the fight against counterfeit medicines, and it's a strong political message from the entire pharmacy profession. Taking that forward, we've built tools for member organisations to facilitate their involvement and actions against this public threat, this major threat to public health. And we developed a guide to create strategies for pharmacists to be included in national policies. We see this as fundamental. If you don't have pharmacy linked into national policies, then it's very difficult to support the pharmacists on the ground to make the change we need. FIP is leading an expert group here, a collaboration with WHO, on projects to raise awareness of substandard and falsified medicines, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. So I look forward to seeing how we can impact on this. And was mentioned earlier on by Panette, you mentioned that we are leading this work to bring together English-speaking and French-speaking pharmacy schools from Africa to develop a curricula on this issue. And the student pharmacists will be trained with this curricula to be aware of the issues and to mitigate and manage them. This is a major public health improvement benefit, and FIP is delighted to be the leading body in this project. However, I may say, colleagues, it's not enough for us to embed this in the curricula of new pharmacists. It's about us empowering the workforce. And finally, we are working with the World Health Professions Alliance, comprising medicine, dentistry, nursing, physiotherapy, as well as pharmacy. We're chairing that alliance this year. We worked on long-term projects which have included a communication toolkit, Be Aware, Take Action, and helps to educate and improve the health all of our professions can be enabled to deliver. If I may say, 3 target audiences are catered for, and my ears will be pinned back through the rest of this presentation to think of the lessons we need. Health professionals, patients, and the public health, we need to support them. So I will take lessons from today. Thank you, Oksana, and thank you, colleagues, for letting me have these few minutes.
I just need to clap for that. It was fantastic. Thank you so much for highlighting and summarizing with those 3 points, because at the end of the day, the people who suffer are our patients who are denied universal health care as a result, because we cannot have UHC if we don't have high quality medical products, which leads me to my next question to Ed Kelly about why sometimes this issue is not as prevalent in these wider discussions around UHC, and how could we better integrate the WHO Patient Safety Challenge? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that challenge and how we could work more on including substandard and falsified medicines within that.
Thank you, Oksana, and thank you to the organizers for this great event here. Like, Oksana and I know each other from even before she became famous, when she was sort of writing, and she interviewed me for an article. And the
failed career as a journalist.
Yeah, well, anyway, well, you should keep that in your back pocket just in case. But I think this issue of it was a great presentation by my colleague from Essential Medicines. We work really closely with them. In all of the discussions, anyway, I'm a director at WHO. You tend to hang out with other directors because you have all these problems that you want to complain about the people up above you and the people down below you. But the main director that I would hang out all the time with was my time here through several directors has been the Essential Medicines program. And our work is on the service delivery side, so the health services side and the medicine side. And I think what my colleague from Rwanda said earlier about, if we don't have safe medicines there, what are we doing at these primary care centers and at community care levels? And I think part of the issue has been that all of the discussions on universal health coverage, no one else has to agree with me, and this is definitely not WHO's corporate policy, so do not tweet this, but is that it has been not a theoretical discussion, but very much of a sort of an aspirational and conceptual model discussion that's been around policy and around governance issues, all of which are extremely important. But at some point, we need to translate that to action on the ground, and you have to make, so for last year, I lost my sort of professional life, personal life, emotional life, everything, for the organization of this big conference that happened in Astana. It was the 40th anniversary of Alma Ata. There's maybe like one or two people in the room that can remember 1978. But in any case, it was the occasion to remember this movement on global health and the roots that we came from, and to really look at how we could reinvigorate primary health care. And now it's being talked about at the G7. I was just in Paris. You would have never gotten primary health care in front of the G7 before. So we have the political momentum on it, but now it's really, I think, about translating some of that in terms of concrete tools and evidence, like our colleagues from Essential Medicines have done. And for our side, one of the things we have been good at, I started at WHO to direct the World Alliance on Patient Safety, which has now become part of a larger agenda on service delivery and safety in WHO. But our third Global Patient Safety Challenge has actually finally come to the biggest challenge in patient safety globally. It's the biggest medication errors and unsafe medication practices are the biggest cause of harm globally in healthcare. By some estimates and our work on this, it's $42 billion a year, and in terms of damages. And I think the challenges are multifold and need to be very specific to country settings. And I think so. Thinking of how we can, I think that's part of the reason why we haven't had more upfront work on this. I think the second reason, because I'm speaking a bit about patients, is that we haven't adequately figured out how to really engage patients in an evidence-based way around medication safety, around their own medications. There's a lot of good tools out there. WHO is part of the Global Challenge on Medication Safety, which was launched a year ago, a little over a year ago, has produced a piece of work. We've worked with some of the folks here that are part in the room on 5 moments for medication safety. There are other tools out there that help patients track this, but then evaluating them and seeing the impact that we haven't done yet. So I think that's a big challenge for us.
And gathering the evidence, I guess, for even in the scope of the problem, it seems to be one of the things that WHO had earlier mentioned is also needed. So really that theme continues. And now we have our academic representative, Professor Serge Rudas from the University of Geneva. So I hope that maybe you could talk to us a little bit about the role of academia in this space. I think it links in really nicely with Ed's point around the need for evidence base and what you have found the challenges to be on collecting reliable data about the prevalence of substandard falsified medicines.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. I'm really happy to be here because it's my town. I come from Geneva, so I'm particularly proud to be part of this panel. Now, in terms of academia, I think we have two main missions, which is research and education. And in terms of research, we are able now to develop new tools. We know how it takes time to have a new device to tackle false medicine. And now, let's say that the academia have time and as students, and students can participate to this effort. And this is really important because we are talking about the scientific dissemination. If we consider that here there is many possibility to tackle false medicines in terms of a technical aspect, but it's also very difficult to maintain this technology, for example, in Africa or in Cambodia or many, many countries. So I think that the academia has to support the education, what is quality control. We have to try to have a lot of master theses in collaboration with people from foreign countries. We have to accept the students, send our students, for example, to understand what happened, because sometimes we have some difficulty to understand the reality of the problem. But anyway, regarding the pure data, I mean, it's very difficult for now to evaluate. I'm more in, let's say, chemical part. But regarding the laboratory, it's very important to spread the information, to have common methodology, to have the possibility to share the information, because this is not related to only one country. We can have a problem with an anti-malarial agent, and it means that a complete area could be has to fight against this problem. So it means that many laboratories could work together at a, let's say, higher level. So for us, dissemination of the information, education, it's really the main topic. And of course, we have developed a prototype here in Switzerland in collaboration with another university, and it took almost 10 years to have something which works. So we need time. We need time, and academia, because it's state research, could tackle this kind of problem in collaboration with a local partner, in collaboration with a startup also. But I think this is our main objective.
Because I also understand that you have been instrumental in developing, also in addition to your role in research, but actually designing new technologies. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a new technology. It's very cost-effective. It's very interesting, but we have 10 prototypes all around the world. It works perfectly, and the next generation of prototype will be completely open source. We have exactly the same, let's say, keyword of the same. We believe that there is different strategies. Spectroscopy is one strategy, but we need also to support the laboratory, and we need to support the education. If you cannot practice I mean, the tools, it becomes really difficult. So we have also to send some tools that could be in the laboratory directly in the country. And this is part of the problem. This is part of the problem because, let's say, the official technology like chromatography is very expensive. And it's not so easy to have and to let people work with this kind of device. So that's why we try to push forward new device and to send the education aspect and to go directly. I was 3 times in Senegal. I mean, a lot of people are going also to help them.
And so that theme of spinning out of academia sort of continues from Adebayo's experience to yours as well. As we are running short on time, I think at this point I will open questions to any member of our panel, should you have any further burning questions for our experts who have been generous enough to share their time with us. Okay, we have a question over there, one over there, and in the back. Yeah, so we'll start over here, please.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, the panelists, for the very nice presentations. My name is Eran. I am from Ethiopian Food and Drug Regulatory Authority. My first question goes to Dr. Zubiri from Rwanda. What is your experience on implementation of the GS1 standards? Because in Ethiopia, we are on the way of implementing the GS1 standards in relation to track and trace, and we have recently issued a proclamation which obliges all medicines to have a unique identifier code on the secondary labeling, which will be effective after 18 months. So if you have already issued a law and if you are already on the way, just to share experiences. And the second question is, which technologies have you used to prevent or tackle counterfeit and substandard medicines, which have made you, which kind of technologies have you used recently or right now to tackle counterfeit and substandard medicines, because most of the technologies, especially the cutting-edge technologies, are quite expensive. And as you know, we share the same problems because we are one of the countries in Africa where we have long borders, open borders between countries. So what is the effective technology that we can use, that we can share also experience, that has made you effective? And the other thing is the collaboration between East African countries. If Rwanda is effective in tackling counterfeit and substandards, if the other countries are not very strong enough, then we will not be effective. So how do you coordinate and collaborate with the other countries? My last question goes to Catherine from FIP. How is your involvement with professional associations in different countries, like the pharmacist associations? How do you interact with them? Because this should be one of the agendas in pharmacy associations in order to tackle ethical issues. So how do you interact with them? Thank you very much.
Yes, should I respond? So thank you so much. I have got 3 questions from my sister from Ethiopia. Very quickly, before even I forget. The second question about technology, efficient technology. There is no efficient technology. There is one, but I am very sure there is also one counter, cyber security and everything. So the only good technology is commitment and good leadership, and the partnership and collaboration. That is a very good one. Of course, if you need the technology, good technology, you can reach out with Adebayo and people like Roger and many other people. So, but the first thing is commitment, leadership, and so on. And you mentioned collaboration at regional level, bilateral, continental, why not even international? So Rwanda is really engaged in that way of doing things, and we are collaborating with everything. Ghana is right now implementing zipline technology. So they came to Rwanda so many times. Myself, I met with many representatives before they get convinced. That is a way of partnership. And we are partnering with Kenya, for example, about the GS1s, and we have so many examples. So in any case, you can't do anything alone. You need others. You need to learn from other people. Something I really need to highlight. We appreciate now the philosophy, the transformation of even our international partners. They first ask, what do you need? Before, it was not like that. Before, they will come and say, you know what? This technology worked very well in this part of Africa. So apply it, and we give you. Last thing I want also to mention is, very quickly, is what we call electronic logistics, ELMIS. I think people from the Global Fund, they know that. ELMIS is about logistic supply chain. And of course, this will allow you to really scrutinize the use and avoid stock out, avoid expiries. And this also contributes to the fight against fake medicine. I think I covered everything. Is it?
I think that's going to have to, well, you guys maybe can have a chat afterwards.
Absolutely.
Passing on to Catherine.
So very briefly, we are an organization made up of member organizations that are professional associations in the main. We also embrace academic institutions as members of FIP, and we have individual members of FIP. And if an individual finds themselves in a country that doesn't have a professional association, they can become an individual member and engage on this issue with us through our technology forum and through all of our working groups in this area on patient safety. And we will work with said individuals to see how we can develop and support the development of a professional association. If you need any more come and talk to me and my team, and we can give you more details. But that's essentially the way to get involved with FIP. And if you're not a pharmacist, we'll work with your profession as well.
Okay, so I think we're also going to take a question at the back of this room. Someone had their hand up. Was it this gentleman over here? Yes, so we'll pass the mic down.
Thanks very much, and thanks for a really interesting and inspiring afternoon discussion. Just a couple of very quick points from me. Regarding education, I think Serge touched on that. And of course, digital technology is one of the biggest opportunities for educating people around the globe. But I don't know who it is that should take the responsibility to produce educational tools in this field. And the second point is regarding impact assessment. And it's always nice to see digital innovations potentially having an impact, but something that's still lacking in many sectors of public health is thorough impact assessment. So again, whose job is it to ensure that's done? Thanks.
Ed?
Yeah, I'm sure others will want to, Serge and others will want to comment on this, but just from our side, two quick points, which is to just be in agreement with what you said. WHO next year has to deliver the global digital health strategy. We were asked by member states to develop that this past year, which, you know, in sort of WHO time means it has to go through regional committees. So we're right in the midst of it right now. And one of the two big pieces that are part of that are really building the evidence base and trying to, I mean, member states asked us to look at this issue of digital health and digital tools for medication safety, but also for other areas, to turn the sort of tail wagging the dog, as you would say in American English anyway, around so that digital is not sort of a solution in search of a problem, but we're looking at big public health goals and seeing how digital can achieve that. And I think the recent release of the digital health guidelines, which are only and they map out a whole area where we need guidelines and what the initial ones are, as well as the strategy will be a big piece. And then better evaluation and evidence, I think, and metrics for that. And I think we have to think much more creatively about how we look at impact, particularly when we're looking at patient and community engagement around this issue. That's a big piece of it, and most of, at least from WHO's standpoint, I mean, I don't know if my colleagues would agree with this, but like, we're mostly a supply-side organization. We've done very little on demand, and we're starting to do a lot more, whether it's around, and it's really important, whether it's around immunization reticence or around other areas. These are big issues.
Great. And our final question, yes, over here. Fellow colleague from the Commonwealth.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much for the panelists. Yeah, just very quickly, I mean, what hasn't been mentioned today is UNICEF. I mean, they have a complex supply division. They have essential medicines. They supply the low-income countries and potentially middle-income countries. If they're predominantly supplying to the public sector, don't we 80% solve the problem? I mean, I think most of this problem is in the pharmacies, outside. So why are we not maybe more promoting UNICEF supply division and regulating that?
Yeah, thank you. Good question, but I think I don't have the data about the procurement and where it's coming from, but I think you have part of indeed procurement for some specific medicines that goes through the procurement agencies, but you have a lot also of other medicines and devices that go into the private sector. I think what we should look at is not saying which one is the best, but really looking at the most efficient in which situation. You need to look at the local context and making sure then the supply chain is strong, and that's something that we are working on, and not in isolation, but with other partners. I think looking at how to strengthen that supply chain to be sure that the patient reach the patient where it is. We've seen on the video from the WHO that last mile is also often an issue. So here I'm not saying it should be public or private. I'm saying we should just look at what is the best solution to ensure that the product reach the patients.
And I would like to just allow one youth question, because I had a burning look from one of my alumni students. So we'll finish with you and allow the youth to ask a question. Yeah, that's you, Naira.
So thank you all for your comments today. I have just a question in terms of, we've spoken about raising pharmacist awareness and educating them, but how do you convince pharmacists in high-income countries that this is a problem that they need to deal with? I'm part of UCL Fight the Fakes, and everyone in this room is passionate and appreciates the importance of this topic, but how do I translate this onto the ground to my fellow colleagues in pharmacy, be it hospital or community? Thank you.
We're sat in a high-income country, and I come from a high-income country, and to me, this is the fundamental issue. If you cannot ensure the safety of the medicines that patients are being supplied with, then that is almost like a human rights issue. It should be at the bottom of our Maslow's pyramid of ensuring our professional acumen. So you have us at Hello. The idea that we will push this message forward to high, middle, and low-income countries is a given, because this isn't an issue for one, this is a global issue. And as FIP, we will make this a global issue, and we will make it longer term a global non-issue.
And I guess I would just add that you should get the contact of all the people sitting on this stage and use us as excuses for leading the charge, because honestly, you guys will be the ones who solve this problem. We've made progress, but we haven't. It's been very slow. In general, on patient safety, I used to direct the U.S. National Healthcare Reports. The thing that moves the slowest in terms of all national performance areas is patient safety, and medication safety is one of these. It's in some ways getting more complex, and I think having to address this together. Just also really quickly to our colleague about the UNICEF, we can talk separately, but there is a big push on this SDG Global Action Plan.
Yeah.
That's an effort to bring the UN family together to work in a more concerted way at the front line. And so UNICEF obviously has a lead role, but we work very, very closely with UNICEF on this. It's called the PHC Accelerator, and names notwithstanding, but we're working in a set of countries to really push not just on supply chain issues, but also on workforce and quality of care issues. So it's a good first example, or a good example currently of how we're working more strongly with UNICEF.
Thank you very much. So everyone, let's thank our panelists. We'll have to wrap up now, but we'll... And the final element of the program will be, we really finished with this idea of our youth question around how can we convince pharmacy and other professionals to see it as a problem in their own home territories. I think education is going to be a huge component of that. But let's hear from the youth themselves now. So if I could please invite Yelena Durbeck from the National Association Representative of IPSF, as well as Mariam Jetha, student lead of UCL Fight the Fakes, to the stage so that they can deliver their youth vision around substandard and falsified medicines. Thank you.
Okay, there it goes. Thank you very much for the kind introduction and the invitation. And I really, really enjoyed hearing the perspectives of all the professionals in really, really different fields. And it would be my pleasure to actually state the voice of International Pharmaceutical Students Federation on this issue, as the technology sector and youth are playing an integral part in shaping a bright future, where digital technologies present innovative solutions to the growing threat of fake medicines to public health, and ultimately reaching universal healthcare. For the timely discovery of substandard and falsified medicines, general public risk awareness and adequate response, therefore minimizing the potential harms to public health and well-being. It is of absolute necessity to harness the possibilities that digital and innovative technologies, some of which we have heard today, as well as artificial intelligence offer. We believe that UHC is not possible without quality of care and access to medicines we can trust, while leveraging the power that digital health serves for bridging access to care on a global scale. The far-reaching value of effective risk communication and awareness campaigns is still often undervalued, while digital tools, social media platforms, and novel technologies provide an outstanding instrument to create impactful educational and advocacy material. Youth can contribute in these efforts by utilizing their strengths, which stem from their unique position of being raised with digital technologies. IPSF has organized webinars and social media awareness campaigns about SF medicines, educating future pharmacists and the general public. As we have already heard earlier today, an estimated 1 in 10 medical products in low and middle income countries are substandard or falsified, while socioeconomic factors are proving to be disadvantages in the development and implementation of complex and expensive technologies. Tackling the issue of SF medicines, a potentially valuable resource would include smartphone-based digital solutions, making them more widely available. Digital innovation has been essential in Nigeria, for example, as they have been fighting against an overwhelming infiltration of counterfeit drugs for decades. Young people contributed to dealing with falsified medicines issue originated from this country, where inspiring adolescent girls group Save a Soul won a 2018 Technovation World Pitch with their falsified drug detector app, by which users can verify the authenticity and expiration date of medication by scanning the barcode on the bottle or the box. Considering that pharmacists are in a position of making a significant impact on reducing the risk of SF medicines reaching the patients and customers, it is imperative they are well educated on the topic, technologies, and regulations. This is why we're here. The importance of student and early professionals' engagement in global health must be emphasized, and as youth are becoming essential in implementing the recognized strategies and policies, we should have a voice in consultations with the WHO. As Dr. Catherine Duggan emphasized, it is necessary for all the stakeholders, healthcare professionals, regulatory authorities, governments, academia, industry, as well as the general public, to collaborate in order to provide quality, safe, efficient, and affordable medicines.
Thank you, Alina. I'm Mario, and I'm from the UCL Fight the Fakes. Isn't it true, Oksana? It's lovely to see you all here today. There's so many youth faces, and I'm really, really proud. So just to further on from what Alina was mentioning, digital technology has a place in helping fulfill all 4 pillars of UCL Fight the Fakes: education, research, engagement, and policy change. As Alina just mentioned, innovation is essential in fulfilling our pillar of research, as they contribute to improved data on fake medicines. But our second pillar encompasses public engagement. The youth are perfectly positioned to impact through public engagement, effective risk communication and awareness campaigns using digital tools, platforms, and technologies to create innovative and impactful educational and advocacy material are increasingly important, as today's youth are mostly accustomed to and comfortable in using these technologies. Campaigns such as UCL Fight the Fakes, Meds We Can Trust harness the power of social media, comfort zone technologies for the youth, and provide a platform for sharing research with the public, communicating difficult concepts and opening conversations or inviting collaboration from the public. And the power of our youth also transcends to policy change. Another growing problem is the ability to purchase fake medicines online, nationally, but often across borders as well. This demonstrates that regulations cannot be limited to national authorities, but often across borders as well. And therefore, regional harmonization is therefore required. Governments around the world are facing regulatory challenges that involve all stakeholders. The voice of our youth is essential in driving meaningful action. Digital technology has played an important role in maintaining the safety of online pharmacies. And as a youth voice myself, advocating for safe online pharmacies as part of the Youth Internet Governance Forum movement, we are working with ASAP EU to inspire and mobilize a generation of internet leaders to safeguard our internet for future generations. The use of domain names, involvement of multi-stakeholders, including Google, PayPal, whatever it may be, as well as incorporation of fake medicines education into school curriculums, which was widely mentioned today, are all youth-led approaches that are being brought to the conversation. So what is our call to action? We call for a global conversation on how youth can take part in achieving health for all, and advocate for sharing learning from the innovative projects that are carried out around the world. The importance of student and early professionals' engagement in global health must be emphasized, and how our work will be part of something much more significant in the long run. The conversation will change the narrative from youth are the problem to youth are the solution, and youth have a huge stake in implementing the agreed strategies and policies. Thank you.
Thank you all for, to our panelists for your expertise and sharing your vision, and especially to our youth voice. I think to close with such passion, with such energy, really leaves us in good hands for how we're going to continue to fight the fakes. My main takeaway from today is that despite the really exciting, innovative technologies that are coming out in this digital health space, it won't happen if we don't correct human behaviors and coordinate with our partners around education and other strategies. So technology is part of it, but it's hand in hand with our other partners. And I'm so proud, again, I have to say it, of our youth voices in the room for really mobilizing social media and their passion in ways that are far more creative than what I think I could come up with. So I hope that together, as we move forward, we will think about all of these issues that were discussed today and help each other to ensure that we win the fight against the fakes. Thank you.